on the next episode of Sips, Suds, and Smokes.
And this is a whiskey episode, and here's the whiskeys we're going to be discussing today. So from Broken Barrel, we have the Broken Barrel Americana Straight Whiskey. We have the Broken Barrel Cask Reserve. We have Broken Barrel Reserve Oak Series. From Barrell Bourbon, we have their Cask Finish Series Amburana. From Old Carter, we have the Old Carter Straight Bourbon Whiskey Small Batch 14. The Old Carter Straight American Whiskey Small Batch 2. The Old Carter Straight Kentucky Whiskey Small Batch 9. And from the folks at Lucky 7, we have Batch 1 of the Workhorse. So,
woohoo! Not a bad lineup.
Yeah. No. It's much better than sitting around the pool with nothing.
We'll be right back after this break. Brought to you almost live from the Dude in the Basement Studios. Why? Because that's where the good stuff is. It's Sips, Suds, and Smokes with your smoking host, the good old boys. And now it's sippin' time.
Hey, yes, it's sipping time again. Welcome to this Sips episode where everything good in life is worth discussing. As always, we are the best thing on around 2:08 in the morning.
Yeah, but who knows that, though? How do we know that?
Well, you know, Judge Steve Harvey just moved off the slot, so we might have a shot.
We got a shot.
Wapner. It's time for Wapner. Wapner comes on 5 minutes. Wapner. Well, this is Made Man Bob joining me today, our Made Man Brent.
You know, we're in Florida, in the basement in Florida. You know what that's called?
A pool.
Yes, that's right. So we are sitting by the pool, chilling and grilling. Don't think that we're down somewhere musty.
Yeah. Unlike the rest of the country, when we dig a hole in the ground and line it with concrete, we lay out next to it and drink cocktails. We don't like have a weird relative living in it down, under the house.
Yes.
And Made Man Maury.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be in the damp, sort of musty, not so dark basement
He's
today.
wearing a Hawaiian shirt. Of course he's out on the pool deck.
Yeah. Please. And good old boy Justin.
Oh, good morning. Always a pleasure to be here in the basement / pool
/ liquor store. Yeah.
Floating bottles of liquor. What a day.
Well, it's, it's a good day to be us. What can I say?
Yeah.
Well, our sip segments are all about distilled spirits, wine, tea, coffee, pretty much anything else you can drink. And this is a whiskey episode, and here's the whiskeys we're going to be discussing today. So from Broken Barrel, we have the Broken Barrel Americana Straight Whiskey. We have the Broken Barrel Cask Reserve. We have Broken Barrel Reserve Oak Series. From Barrell Bourbon, we have their Cask Finish Series Amburana. From Old Carter, we have the Old Carter Straight Bourbon Whiskey Small Batch 14. The Old Carter Straight American Whiskey Small Batch 2. The Old Carter Straight Kentucky Whiskey Small Batch 9. And from the folks at Lucky 7, we have Batch 1 of the Workhorse. So,
woohoo!
So we are going to...
Not a bad lineup.
Yeah. No. It's much better than sitting around the pool with nothing. That's for damn sure. So we're going to ask, against my better judgment. Oh, the hell. Okay, Justin, do our sips ratings.
I am Hans, and this is Franz, and we are here to pump you up. One sip.
Like I said, I told you.
It was against your better judgment, I know.
Mm-hmm. Give me a glass of water to wash out my mouth.
Water. Bring water. Bring water.
2 sips. Nice, but what else do you have, girly man?
Well, isn't that nice?
3 sips. Interesting. What was this again?
Interesting.
4 sips. Let's keep the secret to ourselves. Pour me another.
That's classified.
Isn't that what he said to his steroid dealer? Yeah.
5 sips. Oh my! I was unaware anything could be this good.
Oh my goodness!
Yes! 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 Yes!
Thank you, Arnold.
You're welcome.
Get to the chopper. Yep. That's a new record. 4 minutes and 44 seconds in, and we're already in the toilet. So let's get on to, let's see if we can salvage this show.
Not a chance.
Let's get on to our first whiskeys, and we're going to have Brent tell us a little bit about them.
Okay, this is a Broken Barrel Whiskey Company. It was founded by Seth Benham, the owner of Infused Spirits. Broken Barrel sources whiskey from Indiana and contract distills whiskey in Kentucky and at the historic Green River Distillery. Most people think it's like MGP, that they get. So and then the blends the whiskey to profile before subjecting it to their unique finishing process. The company is founded on the idea of an oak bill. The whiskey is filled into a large tank. It's a stainless steel tank, and then new and used staves from a variety of barrels, including American bourbon, French oak, brandy, and sherry, are inserted into the whiskey to finish it. So I guess, I think they just take apart the barrels and put the staves in there. I don't think they actually break them up, but it's a process, I think, kind of like.
Have you ever tried to bend a stave? It doesn't bend. You sure as heck ain't breaking it.
No, it's, yes.
You got to drop a barrel out of about a third floor window onto concrete to get that sucker to break. Oak is strong.
I can just see them sitting around a large steel tank, and like us sitting around the pool right now and just throwing staves in it,
That's our workout warm up. You break a stave and then break a sweat.
So,
it's like how we sit here and throw the piranhas in the pool when Harm's around.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, same thing. Okay.
See which one lasts longer, Harm or the piranha?
Well, the last time he went out on my boat,
I was too drunk.
He yelled at me because I kept chumming the water when he was swimming. But,
That's his choice. So our first expression is Broken Barrel Americana Straight Whiskey. It's 50% ABV, 100 proof, non-age stated, 80% corn, 14% rye, 6% malted barley. This expression is a blend of light whiskey and bourbon, which is unusual. Most people don't do that. So it's finished with 3 very American favored oaks. The oak bill is 40% toasted American oak barrel staves, 40% new char, number 4 oak staves, and 20% American apple brandy staves. So they've got quite a mixture in here. The color on this is a very light straw color. It's not a deep color at all. On the nose, I get apple pie, vanilla, a little bit of butterscotch. It's fruit. It's that fruitiness of that fruitiness and sugariness. On the palate, it's just you get apple pie right off the bat. I get some dark chocolate. It's like a bitter kind of chocolate on it. And it's got a decent finish. It's got that dark chocolate carries over into the palate, where it's got that little bit of bitteriness and a little bit of nuttiness to it. And overall, it's a nice entry level bourbon for them for what they're bringing in. And I have to say that it's different than anything that's on the shelf. So, when you want to try something different, you don't have to look at everything that's like, well, that's that. Now you get something a little bit to choose from. And I like what they're doing here with this concept. Maury, what do you think?
Well, that's a good question. I agree with you. It's an interesting concept. I love the fact that they're experimenting. They're doing different things. They're really breaking with tradition. Cooking essentially with wood, much like reminds me of the Maker's 46 program, where they're using staves to, kind of create a recipe. So yeah. I like the concept. Like I said, they're just getting started. I'd love to see where they go in the next few years. I think it's well made. It's, it's not overly complex. It's got a medium finish. It's got some nice apple pie flavors, as you pointed out. I think it's fun. I think it's an interesting whiskey to talk about how they've kind of, turned the industry on its head and put in stainless steel and added wood staves as opposed to adding whiskey to wooden barrels.
Right. Makers added it to a wooden barrel, just a single barrel, and they added to a vat. I don't know how big the vat is.
Yeah, batch.
Yeah, I don't know how big it is, that they're doing it to, or what but it's nice. It's interesting. So
yeah, Justin, what'd you think?
This kind of reminds me of like Kentucky Gentleman mixed with like Heaven Hill Bottle and Bond stirred together in the best possible way.
Who's done that?
It's like you get that kind of neutral grain spirit thing, but you get some decent whiskey behind it.
Well, you've been drinking a little bit, and you didn't quite finish the first glass, and then you grab the bottle and pour it in. That's how it happens.
Right.
Like I have to tell you? Come on.
What'd you think of this whiskey, Bob?
I thought it was interesting. It's that apple pie is just leaps out of the glass. It's got a really pretty nose. It's really, really interesting nose. A little bit light for me. I tend to like my whiskeys a lot more, beefier, a little more heavier.
When you say you can taste color, this one you can kind of taste the color.
It's
so the mushrooms are working.
I can tell that there's light whiskey in that blend. But I think they did a really good job with the wood bill on this, because it made a really interesting flavor palette. And it made a really interesting nose. I wish they'd have just went all straight bourbon instead of the light whiskey in it. I think it would have had a little bit more body to it. But overall, a solid, well put together whiskey. I wouldn't turn my nose up at it. That's for sure.
What are we rating this one?
Well, we are going to be rating the Broken Barrel Americana Straight Whiskey 2 sips.
Well, isn't that nice?
So that's going to take us to our next whiskey, and we're going to have Justin tell us about that one.
So we're going to talk about Broken Barrel Americana Straight Whiskey.
I think we're talking about...
Now we're going to talk about Broken Barrel Cask Strength.
Yeah.
57.5.
We already just talked about the other one. Yeah.
Alcohol.
Thanks for joining the program.
Or 115 proof. It's 70% corn, 21% rye, and 9% malted barley.
You weren't even born with the sense God gave the common dog.
Using a base of Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, the oak bill for this expression is 40% ex-bourbon barrels, 40% new French oak, and 20% sherry barrels. So
interesting wood bill.
This one has a very sweet nose to it. It's kind of got a dark copper color on the palate. I get caramel, dark berries, and we'll be back with more. And this is good old boy Justin back talking about Broken Barrel Cask Strength. What's interesting about this is it kind of reminds me of Dalmore with the orange and dark chocolate. That's a scotch that we've talked about on this show before. And the finish goes away pretty quick. But up until that point, I really enjoyed it. What did you think, Maury?
I thought this was a clear step up from the previous whiskey. I like this quite a lot. This was a little more traditional bourbon. I think they cut back a little bit of corn on the mash bill. They added a little bit of rye. Again, it's got a nice dark copper color. I would agree with you on that. It has a pleasant nose, but it's got a really nice mouthfeel. It's got just some viscosity. It's got some vanilla and some brown sugar. And I found the palate to be, the finish to be a little bit more medium. I found this to be pleasant, really enjoyable, very nice, approachable whiskey, very well made. I'd love to see this with a little bit more age on it, but it's definitely not young. I think it's ready to drink. And I think, probably represents a nice entry level, good value, whiskey. Brent, what do you think?
Yeah, on the nose, I put down here sweetness. I got like powdered sugar and sherry on the nose. I mean, it's like a sweet nose. It's like you can't avoid not noticing that right off the bat. And then on the palate, I put down, it's got like cake notes, like a nice like birthday cake note, with a little bit of, and I got just a hint of some berries on there, hard to say if it's blackberries, but there's just a hint of berries on it. And yeah, the finish is nice, but it's kind of short-lived. It just doesn't follow through with like, okay, well, because you feel like you have to come back to it too soon, to really get out of it what you need to. So, Bob?
Pretty much echoing on what everybody else has said. It's got a pretty nose. I'm with you. It's a really, really sweet nose. I mean, it's like inhaling powdered sugar.
Yes.
It's really, really sweet.
What I got down.
Reminds me of a
powdered
beignet.
Sugar, sherry, and sweet.
Cafe Du Monde with my hickory coffee, and I'm sniffing the beignets because
Sniffing the beignet.
Yeah, you're trying to eat a
wake up.
beignet and you inhale a little bit too hard.
Inhale a little of the powder.
Yeah, it's a really, really sweet nose. But, I'm definitely getting, I get like some blackberry on it for sure.
Yeah, just that hint of blackberry. It's like you got that cake note, but then a hint of blackberry.
Yeah, a little bit of orange peel, and I get hold on. On the palate, the sweetness for me really comes through. I get candy corn. That waxy, sweetie kind of.
That's a good point. Yeah, I think you might be right. That's a good descriptor.
Yeah, the nose fools you because you think it's going to be really sticky,
Sweet.
and it's not as sweet. It's like candy corn is sweet, but it's a little more waxy than sweet, and that's what I'm getting here. I'm getting sort of that overall. I'm getting a little bit of a corn flavor in it, and not like raw corn, like
candy corn,
like it's
the wax.
Like when we say, like it's the whiskey's a little corny because it's too young. Not that. It's more
No,
like
it's not that corny.
No, it's like a candy corn kind of thing. So
yeah, that's kind of why I said the cake notes because it wasn't sweetness like it.
Yeah.
but it was
yes, mildly sweet. It's the nose. The nose tricks you. But and it's the finish on it's not too bad. A little bit hot actually.
So who's happy to get the candy corn at Halloween? Who wants to throw it away?
Nobody.
I'd like to throw it away.
Nobody's happy.
Bob?
I think there's only one batch of candy corn. It's like fruitcake. It just goes around and around. You get it. Your kids bring it home. You just hold on to it because it never goes bad, and then you put it in the bucket for next year.
just
Early
re-gifted.
recycling.
And then their kids get it, and then it just goes back and forth.
Yeah.
I think the factory that made that burned down in 1856. So,
Guys, let me refocus you. What are we going to rate this whiskey?
well, we are going to be rating the Broken Barrel cask strength 3 sips.
Interesting.
Fantastic.
All right, so let's move on to our next one. We're going to have Maury tell us about that one.
Well, thank you, Mr. Bob. Our next whiskey is the Broken Barrel Reserve Oak Series, 57.5% ABV or 115 proof for those of you who are mathematically challenged like Justin.
Oh, for
It
sure.
is 13 years old. The mash bill is 70% corn, 21% rye, and 9% malted barley. Using Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, the oak bill for this expression is 70% beech brandy staves and 30% French oak staves. I don't even know what to say about that. Let me say that the color is a nice, burnished copper. On the nose, it's definitely fruity. There's definitely peach and pie crust. On the palate, it's got some viscosity. It's got a lot of vanilla, brown sugar. Again, it's got a sweetness. And after that last whiskey, I thought I liked it a little bit more. I'm finding after the last whiskey, it falling a little bit flat on my palate at this time. First time I tried it, I was a little more hopped up about and excited about this. But after it sat in the glass and after just revisiting the previous whiskey, by comparison, I feel like this falls a little bit short. Just got a little one note, kind of a short finish, kind of didn't really do much. I think it was better when we first poured it. What do you think, Justin?
You're absolutely right.
Oh my God, that's the first time I ever heard that. Can you say that again?
You are absolutely right.
You'll never hear it
Let
at
me
home.
get out my recorder. I never hear
You'll
that at
never
home.
hear
I'd
it
like,
again, so
I'd
you
like
should
to
record
record
it.
it so I can bring it home.
Yeah, when we first poured it, it was fine.
I'd like to be at home when he plays that tape just to see the look he gets on that.
Yeah, when we first poured it, it was fine. Then it just went south. I got like,
It just disappeared in the glass.
yeah, I mean, the nose is still good. I got like marshmallows and banana bread.
Even the
on
nose is a shell of its former self.
But something went wrong with the finish. But, you know,
Brent, what do you think?
Yeah, I got the banana bread and peaches on the nose. It did follow up on the palate with the banana bread and some nuttiness on it. But yeah, it has changed. It has evolved and changed. It doesn't quite have the finish that it had before. Not after revisiting these three again, but it is the darker of the three. I kind of expected more of a punch to it than what it was. It doesn't drink like a 115 proof for a 13-year-old.
so I guess you got to crack it, chug it, but responsibly.
The
Responsibility is
It's
important.
definitely this is a dessert, kind of like a dessert whiskey, that you'll have for dessert and then move on to something else after that. It fits right in that section of your night. You finish eating, you have your little dessert drink, and then you move on to something else. So it fits right in. Mm-hmm. Bob?
Yeah, on the nose, I'm with you. It's like a peach pie. That jumps out, man. It's like peach pie filling. And on the palate, kind of like a cinnamon raisin bread kind of thing going on. A little bit of nuttiness in the center of the palate.
Yeah.
Like I'm picking up like a pecan. A little bit of dryness in the center of the palate. Lots of vanilla, lots of brown sugar.
Those are the flavors. You nailed them on the head. Everybody's saying the same thing over and
Yeah,
over again. All the ingredients of a peach pie.
Yeah, the brown sugar note's more like when you make cinnamon rolls, you take the brown sugar, you mix it up with the butter to make it moist, and then spread it out. It tastes like brown sugar mixed with like a little bit of brown melted butter. That nuttiness is what's coming through for me. A little bit of red berries.
Yeah, deconstructed pie.
Yeah. But I'm with Brent. I think this thing would be, with dessert, I think this thing would be really good. And the nose is still there for me. The palate's fell off a little bit since we opened it, but the nose is still right where it was.
When you come back to it a third time, the palate, the finish picks up a little bit more. So I don't know if that's just because it's
because it's an odd number.
It is an odd number.
Could be all that methamphetamine you did this morning.
Could be that too.
Well,
That's why my teeth are brown.
You have teeth?
I was about to say, you're in early stages of meth if you still have teeth.
He keeps them in his pocket like Barney Fife and his bullet. I keep forgetting. Yeah, they're in the pocket. All right. Well, we are going to be rating the Broken Barrel Reserve Oak Series 3 sips.
Interesting.
So that brings us to our next whiskey. This is
Why don't you tell us about it, Bob?
From Barrel Craft Spirits. So Barrel Craft is the producer of Barrell Bourbon. They were founded in 2013 by Joe and Janet Beatrice, lovely people. Joe's involvement in the spirits industry goes back to the 80s when his firm, Blue Dingo Digital, was busy creating digital presences for various brands in the spirits industry. All that changed in 2012 after a trip to a local distillery when he got the bug to get into the whiskey business on the production side, which, yeah, you can... You go to a distillery and you start thinking you can do this. It hits everybody. So built on the Scottish model of an independent bottler and blender, they began sourcing quality whiskeys and rums from various sources and blending them to try to make an end product that's better than the sum of its parts. And apparently it's working because they've received a lot of awards. and they keep stacking them up. And honestly, it's interesting to watch Joe as a blender all these years on. I mean, he just continues to get better every year. I mean, he's turned out some really fantastic stuff. They've actually been given the award for the best bourbon at the San Francisco World Spirits Competition for their batch 11 release. So, let's talk about our first whiskey, our only one from Barrell Bourbon today, which is the Barrell Bourbon Cask Finish Amburana. It's 58.21% ABV, which is 116.42 proof. This is a blend of 5, 6, 7, and 10-year-old Indiana bourbon and 5-year-old Kentucky whiskey. To make this expression, the blending team created a bourbon blend with 2 mash bills with different char levels and finished it in Amburana casks. A vatting of individual casks without finishing was then layered in to add more depth and richness and complexity, ensuring the bourbon shines through first and foremost. Rather than use cubes, spirals, or finishing staves, Barrell Craft Spirits chief whiskey scientist Trip Stimson sourced true 53-gallon barrels made from sustainably harvested Amburana wood to finish off the bourbon. And Amburana is like the word of the day. It's like Sesame Street. What's today's word in Kentucky right now?
Everybody's using it in Kentucky.
In Kentucky, the word of the day is Amburana. The number is 3. So, everybody's experimenting. Yep. And I'm glad, because I've had some that are really, really good. I've had some that, they're working it out, but I think there's a future for it for cask finishing, at least in
very, very potent, though. It's often
in
overdone.
Kentucky. Yeah, that's they're learning, I mean, because this is a new wood for everybody, I mean, 5 years ago, had you ever heard of it? I hadn't,
No. I'd heard of it till this weekend when I read the script.
Oh,
you read the script?
I know.
Wow.
Liar, liar, pants on fire.
Yeah, I doubt that.
I even practiced the voices, but it was the wrong one.
Well, there's our boy. Okay. Dear Lord. Well, the nose on this, it's just, I mean, we all said it. It's everybody's going to say the same thing. It's like going to Dunkin' Donuts and getting a bag full of warm apple fritters, sitting down in the car and opening them up, sticking your face in the bag.
I've got something different.
It's like I'm sure you do. It'll be some industrial product, no doubt.
Right.
No, not today.
Right. He had a bad childhood. So,
yeah.
I mean,
well, his mom made him drink Fabuloso. So, yeah, it's apple fritters all day long. Now that it's been sitting in the glass, there's some burnt toffee for me that's coming through. I'm definitely getting that toffee a lot more than I was before. And then just that sort of baking spice that you get with an Amburana finished whiskey.
Cinnamon.
Yeah. Yeah, cinnamon rich baking spice. So, but on the palate, let's have a sip. It's got a good mouthfeel to it. It's a little bit dry. Yeah, it's definitely on the dry side. It's almost like me and Maury were saying, it's kind of like an IPA finish. It's got sort of that little bit of astringency, that little bit of bitter on the back end, but all that baking spice and Amburana spice is still there. So I was almost expecting, when you smell all that baking spice, you're expecting it to be sweet, and it's not. It's very different. There's some citrus in there. There's a nuttiness to it. It's almost like, you ever have a really old overproof rum, like an old Jamaican
Ray
rum?
Nelson, or,
25 plus. It reminds me of that. Mm-hmm. The rum loses that sweetness and it goes the other way.
Yeah,
that's what it's reminded me of. Yes, this is interesting. This is very interesting. What do you think, Justin?
So, obviously, I got the cinnamon, but I also got like canned lemons with oil.
Hold on. Canned lemons?
No, I'm sorry, canned clams with lemons and olive oil.
I've never in my life seen a lemon in a can. I got to find this.
Yeah, canned clams, lemon, olive oil, and black pepper.
Holy cannoli. That is a mouthful. Boy, I want whatever mushrooms you're eating.
I'm going to say it one time, and that's just because we care.
Uh-huh.
That's why they call it dope, son. Lay off of it.
I want what he's chewing.
Lord have mercy. It's called cocoa leaves. Yeah. What'd you think, Maury?
Wow. Well, let me say this. It's grown on me in the glass. It's a geek whiskey. It's a really, really niche, unique, never had anything like it kind of whiskey. For me, it's a little out of balance. It's coming back into balance after about 45 minutes in the glass with some air. I think that you are spot on about the finish. The finish seems to have elongated, and I thought the finish notes were spot on. You know, it's sweeter than you'd expected on the palate. It was this dark Cuban rum, and
that, it's not just me, right? Like if you've had like a 25 or 30-year-old rum. It loses that sweetness, and then you get, the wood really comes through.
That's what I get on the palate.
Yeah.
I get that kind of.
Yeah.
It's totally.
It's not the flavor, it's the sensation. It's the feeling.
It's totally out there. Like I said, it's like no other bourbon you've ever really had. So it's very unique, and it's fun to just share with your whiskey geeky friends. Hey, want to try something you've never had before? This is fun. Tell me what it is.
But here's the thing. There's nothing wrong with a geek whiskey, because we've all got a few that like each one of us likes that the rest of us don't, but like there's one or two that each one of us is like really is fascinated with. Yeah. And this one, this is definitely one to put up on the shelf to pull out when your friends come over and go, man, come here and try this one. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not an all day sipper. It's not even something that, to be honest, I really go back to or spend my hard earned money on, but it's fun to try and talk about.
Yep. What'd you think, Brent?
Yeah. So on the palate, one thing I have is too much cinnamon. And by describing that, I want to say that if you were to take, when I was a kid, we used to take pie crust and put on their butter, you have a nice buttery pie crust, you butter it, and then you put sugar, cinnamon on it. It's like you forgot the sugar. So you got the butter and you got the cinnamon and you baked it and that's how it is. You get that butteriness, your cinnamon, that pie crust taste. It's a geek. Like
is a pie crust with cinnamon, sugar, and butter? Is that kind of like a ketchup sandwich?
It's kind of like a poor Minnesota thing, I guess.
I've never heard of that.
No, you make little strips out of them, and you eat them. Okay. They're pretty good.
with the government cheese, I guess. I don't know.
Canned clams and canned lemons, so I don't have that going for me.
Well, I had a good friend who lived on ketchup sandwiches, and that kind of reminds me of a ketchup sandwich.
Yeah. Well, we'll
be back on that one. Yeah. Hey, and we're back. And Brent was expounding upon his last thoughts on the Amburana.
I got ridiculed enough during the break, so we're going to get right out of this one.
You should be used to it by now. What? Now all of a sudden you're going to get sensitive?
Oh, yeah, he's so sensitive now.
I'm so sensitive.
He's so sensitive he might actually put on his pants.
Nah, not that sensitive.
That's not happening.
I'm not eating that spaghetti.
I don't mind the pants so much, but if he just quit rubbing himself in the nipple area, that'd be a lot better too. So
hey, this is a show that's a family show.
A family show about drinking liquor.
Drinking liquor.
What family is this for? The Addams family?
Well, we are on public radio,
Yeah. Yeah.
Not this show.
Yeah. Not for long at the rate we're
All right. How about we rate the whiskey and move on?
All right. So the Barrell Bourbon Cask Finish Series Amburana, we're going to give well-deserved 3 sips.
Interesting.
I thought we agreed on 2.
Nope.
Damn, we agreed on 3. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, on that note, why don't I move along and let's change gears completely and talk about the Old Carter Whiskey Company. It traces its origin back to the rebirth of another brand familiar to whiskey lovers, the Kentucky Owl. Kentucky Owl was established in 1879 by Charles Mortimer Dedman and survived until the grand experiment that was Prohibition. In 2014, winemaker Mark Carter, along with Mortimer's great-grandson Dixon Dedman, brought the brand back. Their efforts were so successful that in 2017, the brand was purchased by the Soli Group. Following the sale, Mark created the Old Carter Whiskey Company, sourcing aged whiskeys from different sources and blending them to create each new release, which is unfiltered and bottled at barrel strength. The first expression will be the Old Carter Straight Bourbon Whiskey Small Batch 14. It comes in at 58.5% ABV or 117 proof. There were 3,046 bottles. Well, I did have the privilege of sipping a few of these with Mark Carter at the recent New Orleans Bourbon Fest, and I must admit, he lives up to the hype. The whiskeys live up to the hype. They're extremely hard to get. We're fortunate to have these very, very tiny samples to taste and rate and share with you today. But his stuff is really unique. And although he's not distilling it, he's a blender and a cask purchaser. He's really got some unique talent. This whiskey's got a nice deep mahogany color. It's got a beautiful, rounded, voluptuous nose with baking spice, toffee, brown sugar, vanilla. The palate is just luscious. It's mouth coating. Again, all the lovely things you expect out of a wonderful bourbon. It's just balanced. It's just heaven in a glass. You've got cinnamon, you've got clove and nutmeg and toffee and brown sugar and a finish that just goes on and on and on. I can't say enough good things about this whiskey and Old Carter in general. He's really done an amazing job and has really taken some of the stigma away from independent blenders and bottlers. There are people out there that really can source old casks and create magic in a glass, and this whiskey is no exception. Brent, what'd you think?
Yeah, this is a nice one. This is, on the nose, I got the walnuts and the orange, some brown sugar, just like you noticed on some of those. The palate, the toffee, the oak tannins really came into me on this one. I really felt those come through a lot along with the baking spices. They put out a quality product. I don't think he's put out anything, where you said, or you could say like, oh, I don't want to drink that. There's some things you just like, oh, I know. But this is a daily, all day drinker that you can have around all the time. This is really nice.
Yeah. The biggest challenge is whiskeys are supplying by the laws of supply and demand. They're expensive and they're hard to source and hard to find because there are limited supplies. Well, 3,000 bottles of this for the entire universe is not very many.
No, it's not very many at all. And there's every small batch distillery that's out there, is getting their, starting off getting their bottles sourced. And so like everybody's doing it, but very few of them are doing it to this kind of a level where they're having the success that they're having.
Agreed.
There are a lot of them are buying it, like, okay, well, let me buy these and stick them in my own warehouse for a while and see what happens. Then you have to do the different finishes, different things, something to make it your own. And they're not doing the finishes. They're doing their own thing and they're making it work.
I agree with you completely. The only thing I would say about the Scotch industry has been doing it for years, but the American whiskey industry is a little less transparent. We've really not been as sourceful or transparent as to where the whiskeys are being sourced from. Justin, let's come back and talk about the whiskey. What did you think about this whiskey?
So on the nose, I got cherry cola, pineapple, and Elmer's Glue 6th grade. The palate, vanilla, French oak
opposed
coffee.
To 5th and 8th, yeah, okay.
Right, every year is a different vintage.
Okay.
And the finish, I got like a Pinot Noir on the finish. So I enjoyed this.
You haven't brushed your teeth since you came back from Napa, have you?
No.
Okay, well, that explains it. Well, I can't really say any more. You guys have basically hit it all, other than just saying yum. This is a really good batch, and again, Mark always does a great job. The worst whiskey I've ever had from is still pretty damn good. So
yeah, he really does have the Midas touch in terms of picking wonderful whiskeys.
Well, we're going to rate the Old Carter straight bourbon whiskey small batch 14 a well-deserved 4 sips.
That's classified.
The best things we've had in the glass today so far.
That takes us to our next one from Old Carter, which is the Old Carter Straight Kentucky Whiskey Small Batch 2 at 65.5% ABV, 131 proof, 1,692 bottles. Got a really nice burnt bronze color to it. Got a nice color at the rim. Got a really pretty nose. Caramel, toffee, a little bit of nuttiness. On the palate, for me, it's very front forward on the palate. I'm not getting a lot on the back. It's got a great exhale on it. Again, dark caramel, brown sugar, vanilla. Just a classic, just the classic bourbon profile. Finish on this one's a little bit shorter than the last one, though. What do you think, Brent?
Yeah, that's what one of the things I put out, the shortest finish of the 3 different samples that we have. Yeah. Without a doubt. I got on the nose, I get like a nutty mix, and I get like some, like a hard fruit, like an apples or some plums, something, like that kind of on the nose. And yeah, the traditional palate that's like of a bourbon that's really kind of like got that little oomph to it as well.
If you looked up the definition of the bourbon palate, that's it.
It's right down the line of it,
yeah.
So it's, you're getting a good one, So I mean, that's the good thing about it. It's just enjoyable. Justin?
So I got vanilla on the nose. I got the grandma's plastic couch cover, which was like a really nostalgic note, and oak.
Why are you smelling your grandmother's? Never mind.
You smell it when you go into the apartment because it's this chemical smell that permeates the whole apartment. Moving on. On the palate was minty and grapefruit. And the finish, it was like nice, warm, woody, but short. That's what she said.
Yep.
Wow, that's hard to follow. I would simply say, this made man Maury. I would simply say that I agree with Bob, everything that Bob said. This whiskey for me was my least favorite of the 3, but still head and shoulders above.
Yeah, it's my least favorite of the 3, but it's a really good whiskey. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So it was difficult because I tasted it in the midst of tasting 2 spectacular other whiskeys.
Your least favorite kid.
Correct. And so I will say that it's exceptionally well made. Beautiful whiskey, nothing wrong with it. Was it a superstar compared to the others? No. Is it an exceptionally well-made whiskey?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, we're going to be rating the Old Carter Straight Kentucky Whiskey Small Batch number 2. Well-deserved. 3 sips.
Interesting.
Well, that takes us to our last one from Old Carter, so we're going to have Justin tell us about that one.
So we're going to talk about Old Carter Straight American Whiskey Small Batch 2. It's 66.4% alcohol by volume, 132.8 proof, and they made just 2,892 bottles. On the nose, I got like light sweet wine, maybe brandy. On the palate, it was like floral, maybe a little bit of malort, woody. On the finish, even woodier. I enjoyed it. What did you think, Brent?
Yeah, I got this, and the palate, it's like a light butterscotch and cloves, the peppers. But the one thing about this one, it covers the whole front 2/3 of your palate. Mm-hmm. It doesn't really get down towards the back. But then once it does pass then you got this nice, really long, peppery finish. That's a nice long finish. So it kind of like skips the back of your palate. So it's very different than how it does that, but very enjoyable. I mean,
great observation.
You're going to love that.
Brent, I think you nailed it.
Yeah.
I can't remember last time I've actually said it, but I think that your description just nailed it.
Well, thank you.
I mean, I can't add anything. I like the peppery finish. I think it's a beautiful whiskey. I think it's well made. You're 100% right about the front palate, and you're right about the finish of the pepper. You nailed it. That's it. I'm out.
I think you're all wrong. It's like grandma's plastic couch and fabulous. No, see, here's the thing. Like Brent said, when you first put it in your mouth, it really coats almost to the back of the palate, and then it stops. And then you swallow, and then it catches the back of the palate. So it kind of tricks you. It doesn't completely coat your whole mouth until you take that first swallow. Then your whole mouth gets coated, and then that finish just kicks in. And especially on the exhale on this, the finish is fantastic. It just keeps going and going. Yeah. It's sweet, but not too sweet. It's
a winner.
It's got a great mouthfeel. It's got a nice viscosity to it. It's again, it's an old Carter.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Sherry.
They're all good. So, if you see one, honestly, the worst one they've ever made, I'll take a case. But yeah, if you see any of these on the shelf, and honestly, grab any one of them.
The rye's great too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So the Old Carter Straight American Whiskey, small batch number 9, we're going to be giving well-deserved 4 sips.
That's classified.
So that takes us to our last whiskey from Lucky 7. So our regular listeners should be familiar with Lucky 7. We've discussed their products in prior episodes and been big fans of them since they started. Founded by a couple of college friends and movie buffs, they named their company Lucky 7 in honor of the infamous Lucky Stage 7 on the Warner Brothers lot. In keeping with the movie theme, each bottle also has a little movie ticket on the front that you can peel off and, show a little video on your phone and everything. This is the newest release from Lucky 7, created by master blender Ashley Barnes, who can absolutely take pond water and blend it in to make something palatable. The woman is an absolute guru. But what have we got here? So it's got a nice sort of bronzy orangish tint to it. On the nose, really nutty. I mean, real nutty. And I get a little bit of there's a little bit of that putty nose underneath it, almost like you can pick the rye out on it. And on the palate, on the palate, it's got a pretty nice mouthfeel. More front half of the palate for me and the teeth. Medium finish. Getting a little bit of brown sugar. Getting a little bit of chocolate. A little bit of bitter orange. Interesting. Not a bad whiskey. What did you think, Brett?
Yeah. I think the one thing you didn't mention is that on the nose and on the palate, I got corn. Like corn that just kind of wasn't like fully mature.
Yeah. It was green. It was young. It was corn.
Had I think maybe another year or maybe 2 years, this would really be phenomenal. I mean, because there's nothing wrong with it as it is,
but it is.
I just think it's just
immature.
It just kind of feels like it's a young whiskey. And
I was surprised because I really like Lucky 7, and I found some of their products. We've done a pick with them. We've really enjoyed them, but I just felt that this whiskey was not ready for prime time. I just found it to be immature, not ready, not balanced.
I mean, it's good. I don't want to say that it's immature, but it's still good in its own way. But it's just not what the others have lived up to.
It's not there.
Yeah,
yet.
The others have lived up to so much more.
But here's the problem. You're trying to gauge this against some stellar whiskeys.
Right. No.
We're trying to judge what's in the glass.
For a lot more money. So
let's judge what's in the glass and not compare it.
Yeah.
Right. I just thought that compared to what we've had from Lucky 7 before, this was a little bit of a letdown.
Yeah, this is definitely more of their base whiskey line. This isn't this isn't some of the top ones that we've had. I mean, some of the ones we've had from them, the more advanced age ones are.
Oh, and that pick we did with them is just amazing.
Yeah,
right. That's an inherent problem, and I recognize.
But here's the thing: if you see anything in a Lucky 7 bottle, buy it because we're picking this apart, and it's still pretty damn good.
Right.
So. If you see one, grab it. It's Lucky 7. They're always pretty good. Well, we're going to be rating the Lucky 7 batch number 1, the Workhorse, 3 sips.
Interesting.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Thank you, Brent.
Thank you. I didn't even get a sunburn in the basement.
Well, that's because you're by the pool. And thank you, Maury.
Thank you, Bob. Another beautiful day in the sunny basement.
And thank you, Justin.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to be here, Bob.
It's just so quiet without harm here.
Isn't that great? It's like the greatest feeling ever.
It's like, wow, man, it's just so chill. Nobody's in here grumbling and complaining. Food for thought.
Well, you're the one who keeps inviting him back.
Well, for Sips, Suds, and Smokes, this is Made Man Bob. We thank you for joining us. Remember, life is too short to drink bad whiskey.
Really no bad whiskeys today either.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you're listening to us online, do yourself a favor and tap
Tap it in.
the subscribe button.
Give it a little tappy. Tap-a-roo.
The easiest way to listen to our show is to ask Siri, Alexa, Google, Uncle Larry, or whoever it is that talks to you on your phone. Play podcast Sips, Suds, and Smokes. We love your feedback, and you can reach us at info@sipsudsandsmokes.com. Our tasting notes flow out on Twitter and Instagram with our handle @SipSudsAndSmokes, and our Facebook page is always buzzing with lots of news. You'll also be able to interact with the thousands,
millions, and millions
of other fans on those social media platforms. Do us a favor. Take the time to rate this episode if you're listening to us online. That's a big help to us, and we get to see your feedback as well. Come back, join us for another episode, and keep on sipping.
This has been a One Tan Hand production of Sips, Suds, and Smokes, a program devoted to the appreciation of some of the finer slices of life. From the Dude in the Basement Studios, your hosts, the Good Old Boys, will see you all next time.